All right, guys. Now let's go over domain 4.2, explain the security implications of proper hardware, software, and data asset management. So these are going to be objectives of domain 4.2. We're going to go over the acquisition and procurement process, assignment and accounting, how we can do monitoring and asset tracking, and then disposal and decommissioning. So the acquisition and procurement process. So this process is crucial for ensuring the security and compatibility of hardware, software, and data assets within an organization. So what we're saying here is, as a cybersecurity professional, you may not be the guy or the girl that's going to do procurement. You may not work with the VARs. You may not work with the vendors directly. However, you do need to be a part of the long-term decision-making process when we go with the vendor. So there should be some sort of environment within the organization that takes relevant stakeholders when purchasing vendor equipment, hardware, software, moving to a cloud, that as a cybersecurity professional, you need to have your input. So let's say you're going to go, you're debating between AWS and Azure based off your security objectives, based on your risk appetite, the business objectives. You should be evaluating and you should be giving your input on the risk, and also ensure that within the environment, get with the NOC, the IT operations teams, is it compatible? Like if we're running a Windows environment and they want to purchase a Linux server to serve up Windows solutions, well, that ain't going to make sense, right? And that sometimes, I know it sounds silly, but may happen because procurement doesn't always fall on the actual IT team. It may be like a third party or another shop that does it based off your recommendations. So assignment and accounting. So assignment and accounting of assets involves a distribution of hardware, software, and data resources, along with maintaining accurate records for management and accountability purposes. So ownership. You want to clearly define and document who is responsible for each asset. This includes maintaining records of users with access rights and their levels of access. Classification. So you want to classify assets based on their sensitivity and value to the organization. We talked about this in domain 3.3. Is this private or public information? And this vendor we're going to go with, are we putting public or private data on that hardware? Tracking and updates. So keep a well-maintained inventory for tracking and updating the status, location, and user information of each asset. So monitoring the asset and tracking it. So we want to set up monitoring to track certain data assets. So whether that be our hardware inventory, we want to make sure we know that if we're ordering switches for lifecycle replacement, where are they going, what they're going to be used for. And they may be thinking like, man, this sounds like the job of someone in supply. Like, why are we worried about this? Well, on two reasons. One, there's probably going to be some application, like some procurement software that they're going to be using that you're going to have to, one, worry about securing, but two, it isn't within your purview to give insight on what you need and to understand where it's going, especially if you're like an IT director or a CISO. So enumeration. So periodically, you want to perform enumeration to identify all assets within the network, ensuring nothing is overlooked and all assets are under security management. Disposal and decommissioning. You want to make sure you have proper disposal, destruction, and decommissioning in place that aligns with your lifecycle management and your destruction policies. So sanitation. So you want to apply data sanitation methods such as degaussing, overriding, or even overriding with encryption to ensure data is irretrievable from storage devices during decommissioning. You also maybe just want to destroy it, right? So physically destroy assets that cannot be sanitized. This is like your solid state drives. You can't do a degauss against them because they're not magnetic. And then certification. So obtain certification of discretion or sanitation from a reputable vendor. What we're saying here is that if you're not doing it yourself as an organization, how do you ensure, or how do you make sure you're not at least liable as a cyber team or the SOC team for the data that they may have not destroyed properly? So you want to make sure you're just doing, again, kind of an audit on who maybe your third party is for destruction and disposal. Then data retention. So data retention involves maintaining information for a predetermined period for operational or compliance purposes, followed by secure disposal. So you want to make sure you have policy adherence. So whatever that is, right? If this sometimes is just built by the organization themselves, what their data retention policy is, how we archiving, the lifecycle management, how long are we keeping the data. This also could just be based on regulatory requirements. So I'm sure the PCI DSS has requirements on how long credit card information is stored, proper disposal. I'm sure HIPAA has compliance and legal regulatory requirements, as well as NIST, right? There's NIST requirements for this as well if we're working within a DoD sphere. Okay, so that was a quick domain. Let's go ahead and do our check on learning. Okay, question 1. What is the primary goal of sanitation in the asset disposal process? That is going to be C, to remove all sensitive data from the asset. Question 2. Why is it important for an organization to have a clear data retention policy? So that's going to be to avoid legal and regulatory penalties. So we want to make sure that we make it clear with all the stakeholders and any third parties that we may have to communicate with. Question 3. What is the primary purpose of monitoring and asset tracking in an organization? That's going to be B, to ensure regulatory compliance and asset security. You're going to notice with a lot of this data retention, a lot of this is policy based, right? Kind of the not fun side of cybersecurity, where we're just making sure we're compliant. We're making sure we're not getting our organization in trouble. But that is what we're there for, right? We're there to enable business operations to run smoothly. And sometimes that is working with legal, making sure we're in compliance. And that is definitely the job of defensive cybersecurity operations. Question 4. What is a crucial security consideration during the acquisition/procurement process of IT assets? It's just the vendor, right? We always want to make sure we understand who the vendor is, what their security posture is, and do they meet our compliance, right? Whether that's organization-based or there's NIST standards. Like, for example, in the cloud, if you want to provide a SaaS solution to the government, you have to pass FedRAMP or be FedRAMP approved, right? That's a compliance. And let's say we're working in the DoD, we want to use a cloud service, they also have to be FedRAMP approved. Question 5. Which method is considered most secure for the destruction of highly sensitive data on a hard drive? So degaussing is not always good enough when we want to make sure everything is completely destroyed. Sometimes degaussing will leave remnants on a hard drive in some cases. So we want to degauss and physically destroy it. And then we're talking about a hard drive here, right? Solid state drive, degaussing wouldn't be in the conversation, not magnetic. Question 6. Why is classification important in organizational asset management? That's going to be C, to identify and apply appropriate security controls based on sensitivity. We want to make sure we have proper asset management, we define it, classify it properly, so our organization has an understanding, and this is going to play in to how we do data retention on those assets and data destruction.